Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined once again with the one and only Mr. Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And I mean, the first time we spoke to you was over 4 years ago, and I wanted to ask you, what has been the biggest change in the tide in the last 4 or 5 years in this movement to educate people about what really happened, or at least question what really happened on 9/11?
We've got some interesting shifts that have happened, right? So when I go out on the street, and I do, the San Francisco Bay Area, wherever I am, even here in Spokane, I'll just talk to people. I say, did you know a third tower fell on 9/11? I mean, I don't like start it just randomly like that, but if I'm discussing something with somebody, I'll bring it up, and half the people are aware that a third tower came down, which means more people than that are aware that there's questions about the official story about how all three towers came down. Because, of course, they were all brought down with explosive controlled demolition, which is why we have 3,000 architects and engineers calling for a new investigation.
Wait a second, you mean that a few office fires didn't cause a 47-story building to fall into its footprint?
No, not. In fact, no office fire has ever caused a skyscraper to fall at all, and not before 9/11, and some questions about one that has after 9/11. But so, I mean, this is the third worst structural failure in modern history, and most architects and engineers know nothing about it, which is the fault of the professional associations, American Society for Civil Engineers, American Institute of Architects, of which I'm a member, 80,000 members. Hardly any of them know about this third tower, and yet we're the ones that specify the fireproofing. The fireproofing is actually part of the problem that's we've been told is the cause of this building's failure, but told by who? Not the American Institute of Architects, but by NIST, in a report that came out 8 years later. So one of the things we've done very recently is contracted with the University of Alaska to one of the top forensic structural engineers in the country, Professor Leroy Hulsey, Department of Civil Engineering there, to conduct a 3-year, $300,000 study, which is funded by supporters of ours, thousands of them. So here we're going to have this study come out this summer finally. And that's going to be very exciting because we're going to take it to the engineering and architecture schools and universities across the country. So it's very, very exciting to get this out. And so we're just, of course, we already know the results because he's publicly declared, Professor Hulsey, that no way this building came down by fire, Building 7. So we're very excited to get the peer-reviewed papers done and get the feedback from professionals and stir up the academics and the professional associations.
And you know, as time goes by, we saw a massive gap between the death of JFK and when the vast majority of people started questioning what really happened. And now with 9/11, because of the internet, it's moving at a much faster rate, and people are realizing this at a much faster rate. And you know, almost everyone I bump into on the street when I do a streeter video or something like that, when I say something about, you know, the Middle East, the war in the Middle East, it's like, yeah, well, I don't really believe the pretext to get in there, you know, but a lot of people,
9/11.
Of course, absolutely. And even, I don't know anything compared to you when it comes to architecture and engineering, but I went to college for it. And my professor, even when I asked him, was questioning the entire story and said it makes absolutely no sense. There's a lot of us out there, folks, and I think it's growing all the time. But I wanted to go into something that's recent news, that the U.S. government seems to be promoting this idea that Iran admits to attacking the World Trade Centers on 9/11. What do you think about all of this?
Well, I didn't hear them admit that they attacked the World Trade Center. What I heard happened is that somebody filed a lawsuit against Iran, and the judge found in favor because Iran allowed a couple of the so-called hijackers to travel through their country. And so now they're on the hook for I don't know how many $1 million because they apparently lost this. Well, they didn't defend themselves, but they were named as guilty, I guess, in this lawsuit. Not criminal guilt, or maybe it is. Anyway, they have the opportunity now to defend themselves, and because let's face it, every government knows the truth about 9/11. They're just not talking. So here's an opportunity for Iran to put out the evidence, the scientific forensic evidence, eyewitness testimony, to show that, hey, not only were we responsible in some indirect way for the destruction of these 3 skyscrapers, but that the elements within the U.S. government, highly placed in this inside operation, this false flag event known as 9/11, has a much more insipid source. And if you want to know what really happened there, look to Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, who now have 3,000 architects and engineers demanding a new investigation showing the evidence.
Yeah, absolutely, and there seems to be this doublespeak. You know, we've seen this term before, a limited hangout. So the CIA calls a limited hangout basically giving part of the truth, but not the entire truth, in order to distract people from the entire truth. And when we see things like what we saw with the 28 pages, which makes us all kind of question that, you know, there are some good things in the 28 pages that were released, but at the same time, it seems like it just misleads people and drives people in the other direction, instead of questioning, you know, what happened on 9/11 when those buildings fell into their footprint. It's just not physically possible for a plane to do that. And we've gone over jet fuel and everything with you before. I mean, I've done a lot of videos with this guy here. I did a documentary a few years ago, 9/11 Truth, Let's Face the Facts, which has done very well. But so we've gone into this stuff before, and our viewers know this. But I feel like there is this attempt to try and pawn it off on another country, the next great enemy like Iraq or Afghanistan, in order to kind of promote war, like use 9/11 as a relic almost to continuously go to war in the future. Yeah, what do you think about
whoever you want to go to war with? Yeah. I don't know if they want to go to war with Saudi Arabia, but I understand there's some tensions financially between the Saudis and the global elite. Anyway, so the Saudis are named as official Saudi officials named as financing hijackers, who are, almost all are from Saudi Arabia. So, but what we know, or we can easily surmise, is that whoever they financed probably didn't succeed in slipping past security in the World Trade Center Twin Towers and Building 7, 3 of the most highly secure buildings outside the Pentagon. I mean, Building 7, for instance, you have the IRS, the CIA, the Department of Defense, Securities and Exchange Commission. Easily one of the most highly secure buildings, other than the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. So these terrorists didn't outsmart the security. I don't know that, but we can easily surmise that they must have had inside help if they did. Anyway, these were actually the terrorists who were on the planes, not in the buildings. So who was in the buildings setting explosives the 9 months prior to 9/11? Well, let's look at Ace Elevator and have a real investigation. Who had the modernization, one of the most expensive modernizations in history of elevators, the 9 months prior to 9/11. And so they went out of business the day after 9/11. Well, the week after 9/11. So that would have given them a group of undercover operatives acting in their name, complete access to the core columns and beams in the building, which elevators were locked one at a time and were right there in the elevator cores. So this has to be investigated. The good news about the 28 pages is that it opens the public's thinking that and causes questions about the official story, because it's very contrary itself to the official story.
Absolutely. And as we've seen this build up to war in the past, we've looked at the bombing of the Lusitania. These are just admitted false flags by the government. You know, Operation Condor, Operation Northwoods, Gulf of Tonkin, bombing of the USS Liberty. These are all things that have been admitted to. Imagine what has slipped under the cracks. Not to say everything is a false flag, but we should question everything, because millions have died. Millions have died because of this lie that has been spread onto the populace regarding 9/11. And it's about time people stand up, understand this, realize you're being fooled, and research this issue. It's your obligation as a free human being to research this issue. So, Mr. Gage, finishing it up, what do we need to do to really bring this movement to the next level, so it's not like every year around September 11th, everyone reviews Loose Change, everyone reviews these documentaries, and then go back to their everyday, work? What do we need to do to bring this to the next level?
Well, what we're about is getting the Bobby McIlvaine Act introduced into Congress. It's draft legislation inspired by Bob McIlvaine, who lost his son Bobby in the South Tower as he was walking into it. A huge explosion in the lobby blew him back out, and it was obviously an explosion. His injuries were kind of gruesome, but severe explosive injuries, killing him. So Bob wants to get to the heart of what happened to his son. Well, he's now joined by a couple of dozen 9/11 victims' family members signed on to our petition for them, joining the 3,000 architects. And so this legislation would force a congressional investigation of the destruction of all three towers. As you mentioned, the start of the 9/11 wars, in which a couple of million people have perished in a $6.5 trillion global war on terror. So what I'm asking people to do is take the Bobby McIlvaine Act to your congressperson and say, hey, this is draft legislation. Will you join the victims' family members in their demand for a new investigation to find out what really happened, based on the incredible testimony of hundreds of firefighters of explosives and explosions and flashes of light, which we didn't even know about till 2005 when the oral histories came out, commissioned by Thomas von Essen of his 500 FDNY professionals. So this legislation has already gone to hundreds of the 535 congresspersons. Well, we actually went to D.C., talked to all of their staffers and some congresspersons, but we want everybody to visit them at home and their local offices, and take the information on our website, ae911truth.org/justice, to your congressperson, so that we can get the bill in. Once the bill gets introduced, it'll create a groundswell of controversy and demand, we hope. And that's one of the things that has the opportunity to succeed. Of course, the WTC7 investigation by University of Alaska that I mentioned also has a great opportunity to succeed on the technical front through the academic and professional associations. So there's other things people can do, just like talking to people, get informed. Go to YouTube and get our free videos on the subject, 9/11 explosive evidence, experts speak out. Just search experts speak out. You can learn, see our free 1-hour DVD there. It's awesome.
Well, it's always a pleasure talking with you. You put yourself on the line. Not enough people give you credit for that, so I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Josh. Awesome.
Like what you see here, WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube, as the ADL comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. Also, check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also find us at steemit.com at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in Steem, the cryptocurrency. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.